What's up? This is Richie from the Where We Wild YouTube channel, and today I got a DAIWA REVROS LT3000. Gonna rip it all apart, tune it up, get it running nice and smooth, so if you're at home trying to take yours apart, you can follow along and hopefully it'll help you out. Let's get into it. Alright, let's get into this, man. DAIWA REVROS LT3000. Let's start with taking this spool off. That'll do it. Alright, so I'm just gonna do this in sections here. Work on this spool first. Now, inside you're gonna have this little spring clip here, and I'm just gonna kind of rotate it around so I can find the brake in it, and then you're gonna start right where the brake is. Keep your thumb or your index finger over it so it doesn't go shooting out at you. And you just start on one side and just slowly work your way around and pry it up, just like that. And it would have flew out and hit you in the face or shot across the room if you didn't have your finger there. So always keep that finger there. Underneath, probably gonna have some drag washer stuff. Yes, sir. Actually, let's build this out. So, had the clip, no washer, drag washer number one, little keyed piece, another drag washer. It's nice to do it this way and build it out like this because hopefully that's on camera and you can see it. Yeah, that way you don't lose your place. You always know where everything goes. Ooh, I got some more. It's a little sticky here. Wow, it actually got a little bit of drag grease on here. I like it. Alright, down to bare bones in there. Should give it a tiny little wipe out. And then I'm just gonna wipe off all these parts as well. Be pretty gentle with these little felt drag washers. I'm gonna be adding my own drag grease. They got a little something something on them, but I'm just kind of patting them. A little squeeze. These things are pretty dainty. Having trouble even grabbing them. Alright, so let's hook these up real fast, get this back together. I'm going to be using some universal reel and star drag grease, some cows, and I'll link, as I do in all my reel videos, I'll link everything in the video description, all the oil, all the grease, all the tools, the mat, anything I'm using. So if you want to pick something up for yourself, it'll all be in the video description for you. So I'm just going to take a tiny, tiny little bit of this drag grease and kind of just smash it into these washers here. They're very, very dainty, so be careful. You don't want to tear them. But just a tiny little coating, let it soak it up like a sponge. I'm just do it part by part, then lay it back in. Actually, I can put that bad boy in. Now I suppose you could upgrade these to some carbon fiber washers if you wanted to. Man, these things are thin, boy. They are thin. Now this one's got a little bit of a pair of ears on it, little key. I think you gotta just get that to line up in two of those little grooves in there. One more drag washer. Yeah, this stuff is so sticky. That's the difference between normal blue grease and this drag grease is this stuff is way more sticky instead of slippery. That's why it's made for the drag, so it helps it. You don't want too much, man, because you don't want your drag to slip, but just adding a little bit helps prolong the life of the drag washers, and that's why you do it, so they don't burn up on you. Okay. That's it for the drag grease. And we're just going to fire this thing back in, try to line it up. You got to start it off in one of those little grooves inside here. There we go. You just want to make sure it completely snaps into place. There we go. Looks good to me. All right, that's ready to rock and roll. Tiny little bit of grease on the bottom here. And I suppose we could add our own later. Just give it a tiny little wipe. All right, moving on. I guess we could take this handle off. Just gonna unscrew it. Slide that out. I'm just paying attention, making sure there's nothing too crazy in there. It looks like there might be like a little washer slash spacer maybe. Just be aware of that. Just gonna kind of leave that alone. Just gonna lay that up top. What do we got? So you got your bail system up here. This thing is pretty clean and pretty new, so I'm not going to be taking this apart. There's really no need to. If you're having any trouble, if you're hearing grinding or this bail's not working, then obviously, you know, you can pull this apart and clean that up, get any sand off. Underneath here, there's a little bit of a spring. I'll actually link the schematic also in the video description for you so you can see everything. But in here, there's a tiny little spring contraption, you know, helps work that, but this thing is, I don't hear anything. Just very clean, so gonna leave that alone, and let's pull this whole bail system off. But you know what I will do is, here, you know what, let's take it off first. I think this is your little drag clicker here, so you just want to squeeze that together. See how that sits in there? Hopefully you can see it. You just want to squeeze it, get it past those two pieces, pull that out, and pull it straight up. And then you're going to have a couple of little plastic washers. I'm just going to try to pull up on this a little bit, separate it, and then you'll see these two little plastic pieces here. I'm going to just kind of slowly try to get those up. do one at a time. See how I kept my finger on top of that? Prevented me from launching it off. There's one, tiny. So if you just start ripping at this, it could go flying on you, never to be seen again, but just throwing your finger there prevents that from happening. This one's a pain, dude. There we go. And this piece should pull right off. And then there was one more little washer underneath. So what we'll do is we'll build this down here. So yeah, this piece, and then these two right above it. And just like I did with the drag washers, this is a good little way of just remembering what order things were in. You know, you can also take pictures, do stuff like that, but I like to just line things up as I take them apart. All right, let's see. Next up, we got a little bit of a screw here before we can get to this nut and pull this whole thing off. So I guess let's do that. Looks like a little Phillips. Tiny. Now what size we got here? It's like 12. Now, is it going to be lefty-loosey? Yes. So counterclockwise to the left. Sometimes they're reversed. And this should pull right up. Nice and gentle. So before I took this off, what do you got here? I was mentioning that you can do a little something here. If you don't want to take this bail completely apart, at least give it a little love. And we're going to take a little bit of Lucas Real Oil, and I'm just going to throw a little bit of oil right into the hinges here. You can put a little behind the screw, just a little drop right on the hinge. You can just work that back and forth real quick. Now the other thing you can do is take yourself a little rubber band or a hair tie, something like that, and you can drop a little bit of oil into the line roller area. Now I don't know if there's a bearing in this one. I think it might just be like a little plastic piece, but you take your rubber band and just mimic line going over that little roller like that. And that works it in. But I'm not sure on a reel like this if they actually have a bearing in there. But that's a cool way to do it. All right, bail's good. Moving on. Guess next up we will pull off this little top piece here. 2 more little screws. Just being really gentle. Make sure you have the right bit. Make sure you get a good lockup. I want to strip these things out. Pull this little cap off here. Now I'm keeping everything, you know, in little sections. That's what's nice about this mat. You know, it has like little compartments and stuff. Makes life a little easier. All right, underneath this, it looks like you got, is this gonna pull off? Looks like you got your anti-reverse. Here we go, this will work. That's what I wanted to do. All right, so that's the anti-reverse. I'm just gonna completely leave that the way it is. And then you got 2 screws underneath this. Man, that thing's tiny, bro. I feel like I'm gonna strip these things out, man. I'm gonna move over to a little flathead. Sometimes that's a good trick for these tiny little screws. I don't know if you can see down in there. You got 2 screws to deal with. There we go. So I needed a tiny, 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 tiny little flathead. They're Phillips, but a lot of times those Phillips will just strip right out on you, and that's no fun. Hopefully you can see what's going on here. I'm trying to give you an angle, but I gotta see what I'm doing as well. All right, so that's all apart. All right, well, let's get this this plate off here. Got a big screw down here on the bottom. You know what? I'm actually gonna keep that bit right with those screws so I know. What we got here? Phillips head or a flathead. Let's leave that right there. It's a little bit bigger down here. Okay. There we go. Back to a little bit of a smaller bit. 3 screws along the outside here. I'm going with like a decent sized flathead. There's one. Just really want to make sure you get a good lockup, man. You just don't want to strip these out. So just take your time. Get a good lockup. Now I'm going to put these in the order of which I found them as well, just in case they're different sizes. Sometimes there'll be one that's longer than the other, but I think these might be all the same. All right, so in theory this should pull off now. And it does. Jeez, this thing's clean, boy. She's clean, boy. All right, so we got a little bit of a bearing here on this side. We're gonna pop that thing out real quick. Just using a little bearing tester / remover. That's how easy that is. Any washers? Just gonna give this a little wipe. A little bit of oil on that bad boy. Just kind of work it in a bit. Another drop on the other side. And we'll fire that thing back in. Just like that. All right, what do we got here? So now you got your main gear. Looks to be a little bit of a thin washer or two on that. Yeah, this thing's pretty clean. Now in theory, I should be able to just pull up on this pinion gear, get that out of the way. Let's pull that up and off. Pinion gear and main bearing, which is covered in grease. There's a little slide there. A lot of times these little pins will have like a more pointed side and a more flat side, but this one looks to be the same. So that's gonna sit right in there. Just wanna make sure. We got another pin there. All right, now I think on this reel, to get the main gear off, you got to get inside this, and there's a little bit of yeah, I see it. A tiny little bit of a locking little clip that we're gonna have to get to, and there's no way you're gonna see it on the camera. I'm sorry about that, but let's see if I can get this thing off. You know what? I may need something even smaller than these tweezers, dude. That thing is tiny. Let's try a little safety pin. Man, this is gonna be a little bit of a pain, so have patience when you're doing this. Just take your time. You can like barely see this thing. Why would they do this? There's no reason for that. Well, I don't like this at all, bro. Well, this may take a moment, folks. This is ridiculous. I can barely see this thing. I mean, I see it's in there, but my God, it is tiny. I'm not sure how to go about this. All right, you know what? You wanna play games with me, son? I'm gonna use a little bit of a magnifying glass here. It's that small. How you like me now? So I don't know if you can see that. I fired that thing at it. Comes in handy every once in a while. Comes in handy every once in a while. That's how small that thing is. Can you see it? I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it on camera with this thing, but tiny, dude. Tiny, tiny, tiny. I could not even find it. God, that's ridiculous. I don't know why they do that, man. I don't know why they do it. That's ridiculous. I just am not a fan. I'm gonna lay that over there. Main gear should pull out now. And she does. Man, that is just insanity. You got this other little pin. All right, now this side definitely has a more rounded side and a more pointed side. So we're gonna remember that. The pointed side faces up. Is there not a, oh, I thought there was a washer on this. I guess not. Pull out the slide. You got another gear right here. All right, so this one's screwed in, so I'm just gonna leave it. Shimano reels, they don't have that little screw there, so you can just pop that thing off. Oh man, that's gonna be no fun to get back in later. I will tell you that. Jeez. Just cleaning up any little gnarly stuff that's going on in here. Yeah, a lot of grease, a lot of oil, a lot of grease. Maybe I'll just leave that stuff on there. It's pretty clean. All right, so your main gear, you got a couple washers. Watch out for that. Probably just gonna drop a little grease on that bad boy. Wow, their stuff is very oily. Just want to clean up these parts real quick, if I may. Pull off this main bearing. Is that a washer underneath there? Could be. All right, now they got all kinds of grease on this main bearing and I am not a fan. Just remember, grease is good for gears and oil is good for bearings. Grease slows bearings down, in my opinion. So you want to try to clean out any grease that's in them. All right, there is a little bit of a washer here, so pay attention to that. It's very thin and dainty, so be careful, you don't want to bend it. Just wipe this off here. Sometimes a toothpick works good for this actually. Just helps kind of get into the grooves here. You can use a little brush, whatever you got. Toothbrush works good. That's cool. Let's get this little washer back on. Save that bad boy for later. All right. Now down on this side here, you got another bearing. Now we could pop that out, I suppose, or we could just oil it. I wonder which way that comes out actually. Might pop out this way. Just like that. Clean that up. Drop a little oil. Let's fire that back in. Okay. Probably could have left that out for now, but it's all good. All right, let's just add some grease here and get this thing back up and running. Gonna use some of my pen real grease and paintbrush. I'm running out of this stuff, I think. I got some new. Just gonna add a little bit down on this, probably the oscillating gear, just on those teeth. Don't want to overdo it, but just a little something on those teeth. All right, I'm going to hook up our main gear. Just going to hit these teeth. Oops, sorry. Smack the camera. Down these teeth right here. All right. That'll do it. Don't want to put too much, but just a nice little coating on those teeth. And we got our pinion gear. That'll do it. Alrighty, man. Let's start putting this thing back together, shall we? Take a little bit on this slide piece here, right in this little groove area. A little bit of grease down in there. Alright, see this tiny little screw there? I just want to double check that and make sure that's secure, because sometimes that'll cause wobble in your reel when these tiny little screws are not tight. So I'm just gonna make sure that is, and it is. Sometimes you can even put a little Loctite in there, make sure that thing never really wants to go anywhere. All right, we be cool, man. We be cool. So let's just start firing this thing back together. I'm gonna line up this little slide. Just get that sitting in there. The slide's gonna sit right on that piece. But you need this little slide piece here to keep that locked in. I'm just gonna add a tiny little grease to it. And the pointy end goes up. You'll see a more rounded side and a more pointy side. And the pointy side is gonna slide right through. Oops. Slippery little sucker boy. But you just wanna slide right through that hole. It's hard to hold it in place and show you at the same time. And you're just gonna slide this all the way up. Just like that. I just want to make sure that slides all the way up into that little space up there. So that keeps that in place, which is nice. Then we can put our main gear in. We can also put this little slide piece back in as well, most likely. See this little piece here? Just kind of sits, just gives it a little more stability, sliding up and down on that. Slide our main gear back in. Well, you know what? This reel might make me do that first. How about that? Interesting. Well, let's take this out. Set that in first. And then you got to throw this piece in. It's better. Just want to make sure that sits all the way in. That thing was just in my way, so I couldn't get at it. So throw that in first before you lock that all down. When I did that, it threw the bearing out of the other side, so I'm just gonna fire that back in. I'm keeping my hand supporting that gear so nothing goes flying. Try to center that bearing, push it down. And now here's just gonna come that really tricky part of putting this little piece in. So part of me wants to get this pinion gear in and get this case back on before I try to do that, because I feel like I'm really gonna need to support this to get that in. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Get both those pins in. And I think I'm gonna put this case back on first. I think that that might be the smart move. So let's try that. I actually think you might have to do that anyway. God, my hands are so slippery, dude. This reel is actually probably going to be one of the longer videos. It's a little finicky, I must say. It is a little finicky. It's not so bad. You want to see a lot of tiny parts, take apart a Shimano Vanford. I have that video up on the channel too. Jeez, I am slippery. Tight is tight on these screws, by the way. You don't want to go crazy. Yeah, this reel's not so bad. I've never taken it apart before, so it's a little different than what I'm used to. I take apart mostly Shimano reels. I don't know if you already subscribed to the channel, if this is your first time watching, but you know, I have a whole Shimano reels playlist because I have so many of those. But yeah, Daiwa is very similar, just slightly different on some of the way they piece things together, just slightly. Come on, baby. Tight is tight. Oh man, so slippery. I bet you that'll fall right out if I allow it. See that pin? Probably pull right out of there. That's cool. All right, so now that that's all in there, now I will attempt this tiny little clip. God, my hands are so greasy. This is gonna be nuts, dude. Just prepare yourself. I'm going back to my little magnifying glass. To be honest with you, I ain't messing around. I ain't messing around this time. All right. All right, this is going to be a little difficult. So what I'm going to try to do is take the tweezers. God, this is going to be nuts. And try to spread this thing. I really don't want this thing to go flying, dude. There we go, baby. All right, so that's a cool little technique. I use the tweezers to spread it and slide it down around that piece there. And then once I had it that wide, I kind of just supported this with my other hand and then took a screwdriver and just smacked each side of it And I believe that is completely down into place. I believe it is. Jeez, that is just not fun. So have patience with that. It may not go as smooth as that did. Might have got a little lucky there. But yeah, that thing's a pain in the butt. All right, so let's get this pinion gear back in. Throw that bearing right on top of that little washer. We're just going to slowly screw down onto here and get that to sit nice. Make sure that bearing's pushed all the way in. Add another extra little drop of oil right on this bearing. It's your main bearing, so. All right. We're getting there. We're getting there. What are we, about 2 hours in? What are we at here? Oh, geez. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a longer one, so sorry about that, but you want to do it fast or you want to do it right? You know what I'm saying? All right, we're almost there. Let's get this little screw piece back in. Little cap. And now I noticed that there was like a little blue marking on that, so that's how I knew which side was up. Gonna have to go back to this little tiny baby. These little screws are probably going to be a bit of a pain. Little trick here. I'm going to take a little bit of grease. I'm going to try to stick the screw to it. Kind of just makes it a little sticky for you just to get it going. Sometimes going backwards, then forwards helps you with these tiny little screws. And then you got your anti-reverse, and it's going to line up with that little pin inside there, looks like. Just like that. There's like a little pin that sits off to the side and a little black piece that comes off, and you want it to sit right on that. And we got this little black piece here. Line that up. It's got a little arrow that shows you where that pin is, which is cool. Just sit in there, would you? There we go. And it just fits nice. Make sure you want to click that all the way in. Don't let it just sit up there loose. Make sure it pushes in nice. Don't force it, but that arrow faces the front here, and it just sits in nice. Let's get these little screws in. Tight is tight. All right, let's get this this bail back on. Actually, you know what? When we fire this handle on, make sure everything's rotating nice. Just gonna slide this in. This is you can make it lefty or righty. I like it lefty. Cool. All right, that seems to be all good. Working that oil and grease a little bit. Let's get this bail back on. There we go. Let's get this nut on. It's going to be going clockwise. At that 12 millimeter. I'm not going to over tighten it, just tight as tight. Oh man, this thing is just spraying oil all over my desk. I got this tiny little piece here. Remember what size I used? It was a tiny little baby. I'll do it. Here we go. And all that screw does obviously is just keep the nut from moving. Pretty much. All right, dude. Now we can throw our little assembly back on here. Washer. Oop. Got that little piece there. Little plastic washers. These are a little tight, so you just gotta shimmy them on. There you go. Make sure you push it flush all the way down. One more. A little shimmy. Come on, baby. There we go. Get those to sit all the way flush. And then you got your little clicker here. Remember how that goes? A little squeeze. Insert it in here. And then unsqueeze it. Alright, I'm going to put a tiny, tiny little bit of grease on the bottom of this. Nothing crazy. Just a tiny little something, something. Get this back on. That's it. Last but not least, I want to throw a little bit of oil right on this handle here. Just kind of use gravity to knock it in. Let it drip down a bit. Alright, so there you go, man. That's taking apart and tuning up the DAIWA REVROS LT3000. Feels really, really smooth. I don't want to crank it too hard because it's going to shoot fresh oil all over my desk, but it's just going to keep getting smoother and smoother as that fresh oil and grease works its way into everything. Feels real good. Everything seems to work. You got your little back reeling there. Works good. Lock that back up. Anti-reverse. Works really good. Everything feels nice and smooth. Drag's clicking. Bail is flipping. Everything works good, man. I'm happy with it. Not so complicated. I know this one probably took a really long time. I'll try to speed the video up here and there where I can, but you know, it just takes time, dude. You just got to take your time, have patience, especially with little parts like that little lock that locks in that main gear. That is a pain in the butt. You may need a pair of glasses or a magnifying glass. Just really take your time, have patience, be gentle with it, and you'll get it. Don't force anything, you know what I mean? Some of this stuff, it just takes time. That's all it is. But I'm happy with it. Feels really, really good. And I can't wait to go out there and use it, work it in even better, catch a few fish on it. Great little reel for the money, dude. DAIWA REVROS, really great reel for the money. I'm happy with it. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments. And yeah, dude, that's a wrap on this one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're into this sort of thing, don't forget to hit subscribe. We put a new video out every single week. I got a big collection of fishing reel videos up on the channel you can check out, so Hopefully you find those useful as well. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Later. If you want to see more videos just like this one, be sure to check out the rest of the Where We Wild YouTube channel, where we post a brand new video every week. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get notified whenever we post a new adventure. Thanks for watching.
See ya.